I talked about the best way to get, what are they called? No, they're not flight stones now. They're something else. Whatever stones. It's very easy to get them now through Zekvir, just grinding him out, doing him over and over. He recently got nerfed, and this is a big way to get yourself ahead in things. It looks like Bellular picked up on this well, and he's got some things to say about it as well, on why Zekvir is probably one of the best things you can do right now. Lightforge is just a different form of necromancy, and really think about it, necromancy is just late healer. I guess. We'll have to see. Let's check this video out.
So it turns out Zekvir just got nerfed, and the implications are actually quite big. Tier 1 is now the fastest way to fill up your Great Vault, and Tier 2 is no longer essentially unkillable. Both are still punishing, though. Pure Gear cannot solve this fight for you, but do not worry, we will teach you everything you need to know.
Kicking off the hype train. Thank you so much for the sub. Kairos coming in with the prime. 6 months. Oh my god. And thank you, Dexy. Now I see your message.
Solo Zekvir. He is such a mechanic
Valor
focused
Stones,
fight
yes,
that
that's what I
we've
was thinking.
even cleared him on ungeared, fresh level 80 characters, just by respecting the mechanics. Now here's why you'll want to murder Zekvir on the regular. His first difficulty, called question mark, which I'm just going to call Tier 1 from now on, it counts as a Tier 8 delve for the Great Vault. It drops Valor Stones, Delve Cosmetics, and 2 Ruined Crests. It's also the fastest way to unlock 3 Great Vault slots.
I didn't know this. Hold on, he just taught me something new. Zekvir counts towards your vault as a Tier 8? What the hell? That's amazing. I'm going to start doing it. I didn't even know.
Item level 616. Then there's the double question mark difficulty. I'll just call it Tier 2. That gets you the Void Dirigible, which looks pretty damn cool, and the Ascension Breaker title. To unlock the Zekvir fight, which is located in Ashkahet, it's pretty simple. His easier difficulty is unlocked by clearing a Tier 7 delve with some lives remaining, and then to unlock the harder version, that's just clearing a Tier 10 delve with some lives remaining. Once you've done that, of course, you'll need to know how to kill this guy. And today, you're going to learn the setup and the strategy for both difficulties, as well as a whole stack of useful tips, and even today's sponsor. Well, I've been a customer of for 5 years because, well, it's pretty simple. I save money, I save time, and I have a better quality of life. They're HelloFresh. Today, I'll tell you exactly how I actually use HelloFresh, and even better, you'll get 10 free meals. 10 free meals.
10 free
by going
meals.
to HelloFresh.com and using code BELLULAR10. That's for new subscribers across 7 boxes varying by plan. And yeah, it's 10 free meals. HelloFresh.com using code BELLULAR10. And here's what I just had for dinner. It's this delicious.
Wait, I told you guys about the vault thing on Thursday or Friday.
Very quick to
yeah, this disease wiped my mind.
It, well, all of the ingredients were there in the exact quantity that I needed, and because it's a rapid meal, the chicken was already diced, so it took no time to cook. And each week, I get 50 options plus loads of add-on options as well, which is just handy for getting groceries done. And big picture with HelloFresh, I make one decision a week, and they just handle the rest. So versus the alternative, it's faster, it's cheaper, it's healthier, and it does save me hours a week, while still giving me variety in what I eat. It's an amazing simplification. Their box is just left at my apartment. Whenever I get home, I pop the chilled bag into the fridge, store the rest, and that's it.
Heroic,
I mean, it really is delicious, healthy, very affordable meals just put on autopilot for you. So, get 10 free meals by going to HelloFresh.com and using code BELLULAR10 today. That's for new subscribers across 7 boxes varying by plan. That's 10 meals, HelloFresh.com, using code BELLULAR10.
Yes.
Okay, let's get your character set up. Gear-wise, anything above 530 is doable, but I would recommend you go a little higher. The good news, though, is it only costs 10,000 gold on the auction house for a full set of 560 gear.
That's crazy.
I'd also recommend that you go DPS for the sake of time. As an example, right, we tested this. On our low gear warrior, in protection, it took 8 minutes, but Fury only took 4. Now, if you are completely heart set on using your
I will say, though, it did get easier to do as a tank. It used to be kind of impossible because the egg was very hard to basically DPS it down in the time you needed to. And if you didn't get it down, then you died. They nerfed the shit out of that. So now this has become way easier.
Healer, that is okay. Just know it'll take a little bit more time.
Put your brand on
but
DPS.
You also will benefit from just going as DPS, like talented as you can. As an example, our Resto Druid took 7 minutes to defeat Zekvir, merely, spamming Wrath and doing its basic rotation. But when we went fully into cat weaving, it only took 5 minutes. Finally then, for your talents, just make sure that you choose, and this is important, as many interrupts, immunities, dispels, stuns, and movement utility as you can get.
Makes sense.
That is your lifeblood. Those are your tools to hard counter anything Zekvir throws at you.
Yeah, and that's the important thing about Zekvir, is doing the mechanics. That's all it is. It's a mechanics fight. It's no longer, it was a DPS race, early on, but it's got nerfed to the point where now it's literally run around, take your time, do the mechanics, interrupt the things, use your survivability, whatever you can to mitigate damage, things like that, and just do it. That's it. All you got to do now is do the mechanics and you can get the kill.
Then, of course, there's our companion, Bran. Using his damage spec may be tempting, but I absolutely don't recommend that. You should go with the healer spec. That's because Bran
I agree. Use the healer spec, of course, but if you're playing something that can really self-heal its ass off like a Blood DK, it might be better, and you're geared. If you're under-geared, go healing. If you're pretty well geared, then probably putting him in DPS is a bit better if you're playing a class like that.
Of course, keep you alive, give you lovely potions, but also he can dispel you, and that will become relevant later. And it's just more important and more reliable than the extra damage that he'll provide in his DPS spec. Now, if you're overgeared and it's totally on farm,
maybe
and you
I'm
just
wrong.
Want to clear your vault, sure, go for DPS Bran. Otherwise, though, consistency is king, and that is what healer Bran will give you. As for the relics, then, if you've only got a few at epic quality, use those because they're just so much more powerful in terms of scaling. Ideally, though, we found that the amorphous and porcelain relics were particularly good. That's because they're powerful and they're passive, and that makes them reliable. With that said, though, let's get into Tier 1 Zekvir and our strategy to kill the fucker. Time for the fight. This one's going to be fun.
Holy! Did he just drop the F-bomb? I don't think I've ever heard Valular say that. Well, was I hearing things?
Strategy to kill the fucker. Time for the fight. This one's going to be fun. The basic difficulty of Zekvir now has 80 million health for DPS or tank players and 60 million for healers. The way it works is that his auto attacks do hit hard, but the thing is, they're actually quite infrequent, and he spends most of the fight casting things. Basically, if you deal with his casts, you will win. That's how this works. The most important mechanic is that of the egg. Get it right and your chances of victory go way up. What he does is he casts Call Web Terror. This causes an egg cocoon to spawn somewhere in the room.
Yeah, this is the thing that got nerfed to shit. This is the thing that's now much more doable. He swears all the time. Yes, I've heard him say shit and all that, but I don't know why the F-bomb just threw me off for a second there. I feel like I haven't heard him say that.
Just follow the web visual, find the egg, it'll have 4.3 million health and a 20-second hatch time. Basically, that's a DPS requirement of 200,000, which is quite readily achievable at eye level 560. And of course, if you're coming up short, just save your cooldowns for it. And remember that with Bran as your healer, there is little need to rush and boss DPS, and you need to focus on the mechanics. If the cocoon is not killed in time, a web terror will spawn. The web terror's health will depend on how much you had damaged its egg. Put simply, these are the real threat. They've got an ability called Web Blast. It does a heap of damage and it stuns you. Now, the good news is that they can be stunned. That ability can be interrupted, you can use stun immunities, like, say, Icebound Fortitude, or general immunities like Divine Shield to get around them. But basically, those will mess you up, and if your character is slowed, you could be hit by Zekvir's other
certainly damaging the egg is a priority because of this. That when it hatches, there's a ton of added mechanics to the fight that makes it way harder. If you just kill the egg, save your cooldowns for that, that's your number one priority. If you can do that, you make this fight way easier.
Mechanics, and that's why preventing the eggs from hatching is the single most important part of this fight. But don't worry, any slip-ups can actually be managed. Slip-ups will often come from cognitive overload, basically you having an egg to worry about, but also everything else that's going on with the fight. Just think of it like this. Watch for where the egg spawns. Don't rush to the egg and panic. Look at what Zekvir's doing, handle whatever mechanic he's going to throw at you, and once you've done that, go to the egg. And if you are too low item level to kill the egg reliably when doing that, then just save your cooldowns for the egg. Right. Zekvir does not have a crazy enrage time or anything. You can afford to kill him slowly. So now that we've talked about the egg, let's talk about the other spells that can often overlap with the egg and how you can handle them. Claw Smash is this cone-shaped ability, and it just does a whole ton of physical damage. To counter it, you simply must exploit how circles work. And that just means stay close to Zekvir so that whenever he does cast it, you can just move to the side a little bit and make a quick escape. If you're stood way too far out, then, well, it's a circle, man. You're going to have to run a long way.
It's a further radius.
That being said, though, the trap is to not be too close either, because his other ability, called Horrendous Roar, does heavy damage, and it fears you, and it's basically in a circle around him. So what you want to do is find the Goldilocks distance, right? Not too far, not too close, and always stick yourself there, and just get in a habit of, by default, repositioning yourself to that correct range from the boss, where you'll be able to handle both mechanics with
Probably
ease.
like right at the edge of his hitbox is probably the best spot to be, honestly. You see the red circle on the ground. If you're on the edge of that, you can easily get out, and you're not too far away, whereas that dodging the giant cone is a problem either.
And a simple hack is basically, if you're melee, just stay in and around maximum melee range. Do that,
exactly.
and you can
Right
deal with
outside of his
anything.
hitbox.
And of course, since that
Best
fear is
spot.
a circle, and often just running backwards will be the
Right at the
fastest way
edge.
to dodge it, make sure that you don't have your back up against the wall. As for his other ability, there is Angler's Web. It's a straight line cast that hits real hard and sucks you in to kill you if you're hit by it. But thankfully, you can just dodge it, and you'll be fine. The
There you
words
go.
of wisdom for this one are fairly simple. Zekvir will never surprise you. He will never surprise you if you simply know what he's casting. The thing is, his cast times are rather quick, so if you're completely tunnel visioned, just looking at your hotbars, trying to do more damage, then you will not have time to react.
Do not parse your dick off, please. Just do the damn mechanics. That's the number one thing in this fight. Do the mechanics. There is no enrage timer. There's no reason to rush through it. If you just do the mechanics, you'll win.
And then you'll be caught off guard. You only know about a mechanic when it hits you in the ass. Beyond that, just don't be greedy. Dying because you had to finish a Chaos Bolt cast will cost you immeasurably more time than the DPS gain of said Chaos Bolt.
True.
Just focus on
Oh, damn.
efficient,
Feared into the
purposeful
cone.
movement
Oh, shit.
and be calm. Onto the final mechanic then. It's called Enfeebling Spittle, and for players who are not super hooked into reading Wowhead every day and always having a class guide to hand, this is the thing that will be a killer. So what it does is heavy damage over time, and it also slows your movement massively. If you don't have an answer to it, you are as good as dead. The good news, though, is you do have answers to it. Number one, if you do get hit by it, every now and then, Bran, in his healer spec, will be able to dispel you, removing the effect. Also, when the boss casts it, you can just interrupt the boss. It's also both a slow and
That's the
a
interrupt
magic
right
effect.
there.
And the way that that works in World of Warcraft is that if anything your class does, cancels
Anti-magic
a slow
shell?
or a magic, well, it will just remove the entire ability. As an example, if you're a hunter and you actually get hit by this, just press disengage, and it'll be gone. It's one of those funny things where outside of a raiding or a Mythic Plus context, you often don't even need to use these abilities, so lots of people just won't be in the way of using them. There's a chart on your screen now. You can take a look at that. That will fill you in on what your class has that can actually count.
Yeah, buddy. There it is. AMS, precast only. Yeah, of course. This is one really cool thing about this. This is one thing that the Mage Tower did as well, is it gets you to really like open up your spell book and make sure you use everything. There's a lot of utility in your kit that maybe you've never used before. I love it. I think this is great, and it's also a good way to teach people about some of their abilities. Because you got to remember, some people, believe it or not, are still new to WoW. So this is a good way for them to learn some of their abilities.
Counter this ability should it hit you. Now you'll notice that shamans are the only people who do not have a way to remove the debuff, but that's actually okay. Number one, Bran can do it for them. Number two, their interrupt is on a 12-second cooldown, so
Yeah, it's a
they
good-
can just
good
always
idea
keep
to
the
do
boss
it.
interrupted. And while I'm on the topic of class utility, if you are going to be hit by that fear, which again is from the circle, the purple circle that he casts, remember that the likes of Anti-Magic Shell, Cloak of Shadows, as well as fear-blocking effects like Lichborn, Will of the Forsaken, Berserker Rage, and Tremor Totem can prevent you from being hit by that.
That's right.
And basically, all you need to do is
Death Knights.
handle these mechanics and whittle down his health. That's basically the situation. There is no crazy DPS check. You just have to be calm and disciplined. Now, I do have more tips to help you, but first, let's check in on his harder difficulty mode. Put simply, here's how the hard mode works. Every number is bigger, mistakes are punished way harder, he's got a new spell to interrupt, a new spell to dodge, and he gets upgrades to all of his existing spells. So the basics are the same, it's a bit more spicy, and you'll certainly need more gear. You'll want to be eye level 610 or greater. And also, he's got a phase 2 in this fight. Okay,
Damn.
let's talk about the
I haven't tried
that
him
still
on this.
does
Yeah.
dominate things, right? This time, though, it's got 7 million HP, so it is something you may want to save your cooldowns for. And on top of that, he's got a new healing spell. It's called Regenerating Carapace, and it restores 10% health. It's obviously not an ender to your run, but it's 18
It's only a
million.
3-second cast. It's interruptible, I'm guessing, but that's a pretty quick cast.
It's obviously not an ender to your run, but it's 18 million more HP, which does feel a little depressing if it gets off. And the longer the fight lasts, the longer there is for you to make a mistake. The heal is interruptible. You should interrupt the heal. But of course that means you are going to be hit by enfeebling spittle. So remember all that stuff I said about the class utility, right? That big table? Yeah. You absolutely need to keep that in mind. And that very much means you'll want to have good positioning throughout the fight. Bran will throw healing potions.
I would say then, if this is an interrupt issue and stuff like that, I mean, as a Death Knight, I would have anti-magic shield and the interrupt. But if I don't want to risk it as much, yeah, probably put Bran in healing for this one. That's for sure.
To your location. So if you stand too close to the boss or too far away from the boss, then the healing potions will be out of position. So when you need them, you're just not going to be able to reach them without exposing yourself to being killed by one of his other mechanics, like the Claw or the Fear Circle. Yeah. The best thing about Phase 2 is it starts with a nice little break. Zekvir basically decides to shoot himself up with some roids. While he's doing that, he's got a 99% damage reduction, so use this time to heal, pull up your resources, and do a little bit of preparation. This ability is called Black Blood, and once it's finished casting, all of his abilities will be empowered, and he'll get a new ability. It's called Unending Spine. And to be honest, for his big new Phase 2 ability, it's pretty underwhelming. It just is a channeled avalanche of swirlies. So dodge them, and because it's channeled, well, that's just going to be time where he's not auto-attacking you. So that's quite nice. The thing that is harder, though, is each empowered ability. They hit harder, and they're more complex. Take Angler's Web, for an example. It now spawns portals, and as it goes off, as the main shot is fired, a shot will be fired between the portals, so you just don't want to stand in between the portals. His Fear Circle always gets upgraded. The fear from it is now...
So between these portals, a spike flies through? I didn't see the animation, though, in here. But I guess it goes through the portals?
Want to stand in between the portals. His Fear Circle always gets upgraded. The fear from it is now permanent, so you certainly won't want that, and it spawns 4 balls, and those balls will shoot outward. So basically, you want to look at where the balls are, which I believe are on the Cardinals. Just don't get hit by the balls, so keep them in mind. And then finally, his heal is upgraded to 25%. That means if he does get a heal off, the fight's still doable, but your soul will be just a little bit crushed. This fight is 100% about keeping calm under pressure. And that means practice, don't beat yourself up, and listen to all of these tips. I've got 12 of them, all written after a failed run. Number 1, your DPS only matters for the eggs. Everything else is just doing mechanics while slowly whittling away his health, so don't be a parse fiend.
So save your cooldowns for the eggs. That's probably the best thing.
100% focus on dodging. 2, learn to use all of your toolkit. Know what defensives can actually prevent status effects and put them on a good keybind that you can actually use with muscle memory. Know where to get yourself healing from. Know where in your talent tree to find your interrupt, your stun, your movement abilities. Your class has the tools. This fight is all about using them. Point 3, this is a cognitive load challenge. It is all about attention. Having tools does not matter if you are mentally overloaded and you just cannot parse what's going on.
Yeah, well, it looks like then 90% of the player base aren't going to be able to do this until they outgear it. Yeah. Cognitive abilities, not something us WoW players typically have, so this is going to be a problem.
Things that can help are zooming your camera out. You may even find it's helpful to install the boss mods and its events module so you can get some alerts. If you don't like its UI, there's a cool weak aura that just puts it on a little timeline, which is a little bit more visually condensed. Or perhaps you could try moving the target cast bar to just be a bit bigger and more prominent on your screen so you can see what spell's going on. But basically, make sure your UI shows you what's happening, especially his cast bar, because if you know what spells he's casting, well, you're not going to be surprised by anything. Tip number 4 is to absolutely focus on placing him roughly in the middle of the room. This gives you space to operate. Earlier I talked about having a bit of a Goldilocks sort of position, which is essentially maximum melee range. That just lets you dodge all of his abilities easy and not get caught out. You want to stay around there, and you want Bran to throw potions around there instead of throwing them far away.
Yeah,
the best way to do that is just to keep him in the middle of the room so you've got room to work in. Point 5 is to make the most of your Bran potions. If you just run into a Bran potion whenever you've only lost 10% of your health pool, well, you've just wasted the Bran potion. So if you're getting hit by auto attacks, if the spittle debuff is eating away at your health, actually just wait a little bit.
Yeah, I know it'll be hard in this fight, but like early on when I was doing the tier 8 delves with a healing brand and I was like 20 item levels lower than I was supposed to be, what I would do honestly a lot of times is I would stand right next to the potion, This way I was literally at just a sidestep away from healing myself, and I would let my health, dwindle down. I would just keep fighting, and as soon as I needed it, I would do the sidestep. Now in this fight, that'd be a little bit harder because of all the mechanics going off. You're going to have to continually move, but if you can position yourself correctly, honestly, it's like a very quick fail-safe to be able to just like press D on your keyboard, go to the side, and heal. It's all about positioning.
Just to lose enough health for you to use that potion without basically wasting it and putting all of that healing into overhealing, meaning that you just run out of steam. Point 6, after the web spawns, if DBM says the next mechanic is going to be an AoE like Claw Smash, then bait it first. Point 7, if Bran dies, don't kill yourself trying to res him, just play it cool, because eventually he'll actually get back up himself. Point 8, always play it safe. Defensives and movement abilities will save your ass. Everything that you can dodge can kill you, and that means movement abilities matter. Point 9, use consumables. Flasks, potions, mana oil, food. Every little bit helps, and please, for the love of God, bind your health potion to your keyboard, because being able to hit a health potion is literally the difference between life and death. Another thing you can try doing if you've got a cook friend is you can use the new type of food that actually persists through death. It does cost 5 times as much as regular food, but if you're learning, I've got a feeling you're probably going to die more than 5 times within the hour. Tip number 10, once you got it working, can honestly feel like magic. It is to use macros to interrupt Zekvir. And that's because more than once, an accidental mouse over meant that we ended up wasting an interrupt on the egg and just letting Zekvir heal, which obviously blows. If you use a macro that /target Zekvir, then /casts your interrupt spell, and then uses a command called /target last target, what happens is you hit the button, your character immediately interrupts Zekvir, and the game then immediately retargets your last target, which is in this case the egg, and essentially you've just interrupted Zekvir, and you hit the button. You didn't have to do any clicking or anything. It honestly feels like magic. It's super powerful. I highly recommend it. Point 11 then is patience. This is a mind game. Every single ability can be handled, and you will see in the internet people saying that the double question mark difficulty is easy. There are people on my team who find it to be a load of piss. But the thing is, I mean, in that case, that's a mythic raider, a cutting-edge mythic raider.
Sure.
So if you're doing heroic raids or mythic, yeah, this is totally within your wheelhouse. Not everybody is. And if you don't have years of muscle memory playing your character, it's okay to get your ass kicked. You've got...
Yeah, Zekvir's an Ash Kahet. He shows it early in the video. It's off to like the left side of the map. Man, if I could find it again, I would. But he does show it early in the video here. Its exact location.
All season to gear up and level up your brand.
Far west side,
where you can really supercharge yourself is tip number 12. Get your keybinds in order. Seriously. Because if you can use all of that class utility and actually use it when it's needed rather than panic and wonder, oh dear, where is that thing that I need? Then you, in this, will succeed. And if you eventually do end up raiding, well, you'll be the person who can actually use their class utility to help their team.
True.
And that really feels good. So next you can check out our keybinding guide. I hope you enjoyed. It will make World of Warcraft easier, less stressful, and more fun.
Yeah, he said the same thing that I said. This is actually a great way to learn how to do your class. Most certainly, like you can learn a lot of your abilities. You learn how to hotkey things and do things correctly. It's one thing that I feel like Delve's brought to the game is kind of a way to train people, and not be at the cost of others. Because we know people have played this game before and they learn how to play like in a dungeon or in a raid for the first time. So, and that costs other people time. So Delves in general and Zekvir, I think, have been a very nice way to kind of train people up, and they've become great content in the game in general for your vault and everything else. So, very nice guide from Bellular here.